1, 2, 3, 4.
That song was Judy is a Punk by the Ramones, featuring the bass stylings of Dee Dee Ramone. And nobody would say that song is difficult, but like Zen, it's contradictory. It's both difficult and not difficult at the same time. It's not difficult because the notes are just 3 notes, and you're just doing D sharp, A sharp, and G sharp. And all you're doing is just downstroke. The difficulty is the downstrokes. Dee Dee Ramone played bass all with downstrokes. I think the reason that Dee Dee played all downstrokes is because Johnny Ramone played all downstrokes. And when you play downstrokes on a guitar, it makes a difference. The chord sounds different. It's hard to tell, but it does sound different. And just doing that makes this kind of Ramones sound. And to match him, Dee Dee played all downstrokes on the bass, where there's not that much difference. If I play, that's downstrokes and then strumming. Not much difference. But if you want to do it authentically, you have to do it all in downstrokes. Now the trick is, as other people on the internet have pointed out, to have your bass really low so that your arm is almost fully extended. And then I found, as I was doing this intro, that just resting my forearm on the end of the bass helped a lot. That helped me not waste so much movement or muscle movement on the forearm part. But that's how you play that. The other trick is to, instead of playing all eighth notes, to throw in some quarter notes every once in a while, like. So hi there, folks. My name is Brad Warner, aka Brad No Sweat, of the band Zero Defects, in which I play the bass guitar. And this is my new channel, Zen and the Art of Punk Rock Bass Guitar. I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do on this channel, but I'm going to do something today for you that we'll see where we go. And if you have requests and if you want to see me do different things on this channel, let me know and I'll do that. The reason I chose to do a Ramones song as my sort of launch of this channel is because I think the Ramones are the band that might best exemplify where punk and Zen meet. And the reason I say that is because Zen Buddhism is a form of Buddhism, as you might have guessed by the name of it, that tried to strip away everything about Buddhism that its founders decided was superfluous or unnecessary. So the story of Buddhism, basically in a nutshell, goes like this. 2,500 years ago, the Buddha, the first Buddha guy, taught people a very simple form of meditation. And that's pretty much all he did. He walked around India teaching people how to meditate. He taught men, he taught women, he taught every class of citizen, every race. He was very egalitarian, but what he taught was meditation. Now, after the Buddha died, the philosophy and the sort of religious aspects of Buddhism started to become more and more important. It's arguable that a lot of these things were inaugurated by the Buddha himself, but I don't think he placed that much importance on them. He was placing most of the importance on doing the seated meditation, and anything that surrounded that we look upon today as religious was there to try to help people meditate. But over the years, the religious aspects, the ceremonial aspects, the doctrinal aspects, the various sort of things you were supposed to learn and, do and that became more and more important than the meditation. So along about 1,000 years after, it's hard to say exactly when, a certain movement within northern India and probably in China too looked at this and said, hey, the Buddha taught meditation. Let's get rid of all this other stuff and just get back to the bare practice of meditation. And that's kind of where the Ramones thing fits in. Because the Ramones came along at a time in rock music in the late 70s, mid to late 70s. I think they were formed by like 1974 or 7, and the first album I think came out in 1975, which is really early. But they were reacting to the way rock music had become more and more complicated. Inaugurated arguably by the Beatles with their Revolver album and Sgt. Pepper, and then people came along after that going, ooh, let's make it even more complicated. Then you got Yes, and one of my favorite bands, King Crimson, and other bands like that, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and all this stuff, and this sort of art rock movement, well, not really art rock, the prog rock movement, and disco and all this stuff, and it tended to complicate things. And what the Ramones were trying to do was strip it all back down to the most essential elements, just, 3 chords and the truth, as they say, and just kind of get into the very minimal aspects of what made rock music great and just get rid of everything else and just try to focus on that one thing that made it the best, like the most, maybe not just one element, but the most necessary elements. So just get rid of everything unnecessary and stick to the most necessary element. This is also true of the form of meditation that I teach and practice, which is called shikantaza. And shikantaza is a Japanese word, you might have guessed, that means just sitting. So, in the form of meditation that I teach and practice, what we are trying to do is get into the bare minimum thing that you can do as a human being. You just sit still. And we do it in a specific posture. We hold our arms kind of like this and kind of fold our... Sometimes people do the half lotus, or the full lotus posture. It's not necessary. Usually you sit on a cushion with your knees kind of on the ground. If you can't do that, you can do it in a chair. We can talk about that in a future video, how to do it. But the basic idea of it is you're not trying to make anything happen. You're not trying to go off into a trance. You're not trying to realize nirvana. You're not trying to study the Buddha's great words or anything like that, or trying to reach enlightenment or nirvana or anything else you want to talk about. We can talk about nirvana on this page too, on this channel too. But what we're trying to do is get into sitting as a bare minimum act. So we take the posture and take the posture very seriously, and I always tell people when they're doing zazen, which is the form of meditation, did I say that already? That we do, that the posture is a balance pose. Now in yoga you've got different kinds of balance poses. I don't know if you can see. Let's move the camera. Okay. You got the tree pose where you stand with the leg up and like that, and that's a typical sort of yogic balance pose. In the Zen balance pose, you're just sitting. If you lose your balance doing the tree pose, it's very obvious because you fall over. If you lose your balance doing zazen, you're seated already, so you're not likely to fall over. What you're most likely to do is kind of droop or kind of... I used to always draw my shoulders up like this. I don't know why. Nervous habit. But you're likely to go off. So what you do when you're doing zazen is watch the posture. You're not trying to watch anything else really, but just make sure your posture is correct. And if the posture starts to drift off, you bring it back. And if the posture starts to drift off again, you bring it back again. And you just keep doing that for as long as you've decided to meditate. The normal amount of time is usually, in the Rinzai Zen tradition, they do 25 minutes as a normal kind of sitting. In the Soto Zen tradition, we usually do 30 or 40 minutes of sitting. You can do 10 minutes, you can do 5 minutes. But for whatever amount of time you've allotted yourself to do Zazen, you keep the posture straight and keep making sure that you are in balance. And there's nothing else to it. This is maybe the most difficult part whenever I try to teach Zazen to people, is trying to teach them that there's nothing else to it. It's kind of akin to if you were trying to teach somebody from a prog rock band, let's say, how to play the Ramones on bass. Or I had a friend who was a jazz bass player, and he had difficulty with doing something as simplistic as punk rock bass, because you're just hitting one note. And it's difficult not to want to complicate things up a bit if you're kind of into that. And that's the problem in Zazen too. It's difficult to stop trying to complicate the practice, stop trying to put something else in there. But that's what you do. So there's a little intro to Zen and a little intro to this page, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoy what I'm doing, you can send a donation to me, because that's how I make my living, at the URL that you're seeing on the screen below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is the place where you will find my PayPal and Patreon accounts, and those are, as I said, my main way of making a living. But as I always say on my other channel, you don't gotta support me if you don't want to support me. Alright, we will see you later. I'll use the same sign-off as I use on my other channel. Have a good time all the time, because that's a rock and roll sign-off from Spinal Tap. Oh my gosh, there's a truck backing up into my driveway. Alright, we'll see you later. Bye. I know